Hi, everybody. I used the newspaper database this week to research the kidnapping of Charles Lindbergh Jr. in 1932. And there were so many newspaper articles, most of them front page, and they were in New York City, Washington, D.C., Alaska, Europe. There was so many articles. It was a really big news story, and it was considered the crime of the century when it took place in 1932. Charles Lindbergh Sr. became famous for being the first person to fly solo nonstop across the Atlantic Ocean, and he flew from New York to Paris in 1927. He became very much an American hero and became very famous. He got married to Anne Morrow, and they started to build a house and decided to build a house in New Jersey, which is where the kidnapping took place. On March 1st, 1932, baby Charles was not feeling well. They thought he had a cold, so they put him to bed. They gave him some medicine. They tucked him into bed, both his mom and the nurse. And when the nurse went to check on him a couple hours later, the baby was gone. They found a ransom note sitting on a heater. They found muddy footprints that led them to a side road where they found more footprints, a woman's footprints. But that was the only clues they had. There were no fingerprints of any kind. The ransom note demanded $50,000 in cash, and so they decided to use gold certificates instead of regular cash for the ransom because the gold certificates were going out of commission and they wouldn't be good for very long. So the FBI wrote down all the serial numbers from the gold certificates, and a gentleman named Dr. Condon, who was not familiar at all with the family, volunteered to deliver the money. And so he added $1,000 to the ransom. So he met with the kidnapper in a cemetery to deliver the ransom, and the kidnapper was supposed to tell them where the baby was, but they sent them on a wild goose chase. They never found the baby where the kidnapper said it would be. But Dr. Condon was able to give the FBI a really good, sketch, helped to make a sketch of what he thought the kidnapper looked like. Unfortunately, 2 months after the kidnapping, Charles Jr. was found. His body was found in the woods by workmen who were out driving near the spot that day, and they found his little body in the woods. And he was wearing the T-shirt that they had put him to bed in. The FBI really had no clues or anything to go on to try and find the kidnappers. But then in September of 1933, a gentleman stopped for gas at a gas station and used a gold certificate to pay for his gas. The gas attendant was afraid because had gone out of commission that the bank wouldn't honor the gold certificate. So he wrote the license plate number of the car of the man who gave it to him on the gold certificate and sent it in to the bank to see if they would honor it. And it turns out that they used that license plate to find who was then accused of the kidnapping Bruno Hauptmann. They went to his house. They found more ransom money in his wallet, and digging in the garage, they found a metal container with over $13,000 of the ransom money in the house. And he claimed that he had been given it by a friend who had left the country, flown back to Germany, and had died the previous year. But Hauptmann was arrested. It took them, the FBI, an entire year to actually arrest him. He was arrested in September of 1934. And you can see by the slide, he did resemble the drawing from the man in the graveyard very much. So the case went to trial, and the evidence that they had was that actually Dr. Condon's address was written on the wall in Hauptmann's house. He also had the ransom money. The ladder that was used to climb up in the window to kidnap the baby that was found at the kidnapping site was matched to wood inside the attic. And they brought in handwriting analysis experts to look at all the handwriting and all the notes that were written to show that it was Hauptmann that wrote those notes. Bruno Hauptmann was convicted and sentenced to death in the electric chair. Many of us know the story of this kidnapping, but one of the things I found interesting was how this crime of the century changed how the press was allowed to act in court and how the FBI changed. Federal Kidnapping Act was passed on what would have been Charles Jr.'s birthday. It was called the Lindbergh Law, which allowed multiple agencies to be involved in kidnapping that went across state lines. President Roosevelt expanded the FBI's role to include tracking ransom money and helped to form the FBI into a national investigative authority. It brought innovative forensics into the courtroom, using the wood brought in botany, and it used handwriting experts really for the first time. And it reformed how the media could cover courtrooms with both film and camera to limit the influence that they had. Hope you found this interesting like I did. Thank you.